Okay. Short sample final problem 3, defining terms. So this one, you're going to either sink or swim with this one. Um, so these are just straight up rote memorization um, uh, definitions. So information retrieval, and NLP will be natural language processing. Um, okay. So for this one, I think a common question would be, how am I supposed to remember all these acronyms? Because obviously there's going to be lots on the exam, and you don't have a lot of time, you're busy. So how do I do this? For me, going through the slides one by one, trying to look for these ones doesn't really help. So what you could do is either you can write them out. Separately, like have your own little cheat sheet of all the acronyms on one single page, so you can test yourself. Doing Cole's notes, for example, you can take and then write the thing is. I don't know if they still do it in high school, but this is what I used to do. So my English teacher used to do this. We had a lot of English literature terms, so he asked us to write all the terms on the left side, fold the paper in half, and then write all the definitions on the right side, and then just test ourselves by putting our hand over the paper, or putting a paper over the answers. For me, what I like to do if I have a lot of rote memorization, this is really good for things like if you take CAPS, like anatomy and things like that, or kinesiology. What's really good program for me that is Anki. So it's like a flashcard program. There's tons other I know there's like Quizlet as well. There's tons of flashcard apps you can find on your phone and your desktop. But for me, Anki is really good because not only is there a huge library of existing flashcards, but you can use it on your computer and your phone, and they sync together really well. But Anki does it really best, I find, because they have this algorithm that kind of labels the cards as you go, as like, oh, I'm really confident in this, I'm not really confident in that, and it just keeps quizzing you on the ones until you get all the cards in memory. Um, Another tip for this one, for these kind of ones, like how do I study for these kind of things instead? Again, for me, looking at a page and staring at it and trying to remember the definition of NLP to natural language processing is really hard. It's actually, I think that's actually the hardest way to study if you're just dead on just looking at it and just trying to memorize the images or the association just by looking at it. So for me, what I was trying to do is I try to associate different memories or maybe stronger memories I have, or ideas with NLP. So natural language processing. So just like a mind map, like literally, like if you're making a mind map or something, I feel like you're making a map of neurons in your brain. So that's how I like to think of it. So the more connections you make in your brain to things, the harder it will be for your brain to lose those connections. Because honestly, for me, if you just look at things, so I look at NLP and I look at the definition, it's going to be really easy to cut that or lose that in a couple of hours after watching maybe something else or reading the news or talking with your friend. Your brain's probably like, I probably don't really need that, so it's going to drop that connection in your head. But if you have multiple connections, then it's going to be really hard for it to cut. So even if you cut one line, you have all these other connections linking NLP to these ideas. And for example, NLP, natural language processing, my first thought when I saw this is Watson. So for me, he's gonna there was that idea that he had to hear the question just like everybody else on Jeopardy, but that isn't the case, right? So he actually get he actually got fed all the questions. So it's not an example of natural language processing, because that would actually be another layer of computation that he would have to do. And then Watson, in my mind, actually has an unfair advantage because the human brain has to do the natural language processing on top of computating the answer for the Jeopardy question. So for me, if I was trying to learn natural language processing, I'm like, okay, natural language processing is not something Watson can do. And because Watson, for me, because I watched Jeopardy and I read all the articles, the headlines when Watson first came out. So Watson is really strong in my mind. So if I can associate something new in this course with something I already know, like Watson, it will help me retrieve that information faster, quicker, and more accurately during the exam.